Alrighty, so first interview here with another Amazon seller. I'm very, very excited to be joined by John, who goes by Side Hustle Experiment. So thank you for John being here, especially whenever this comes out. We're filming this. Today is December 8th, so we're in like the thick of Q4. So I really appreciate you making the time. I know it's a big ask this time of year. But speaking of, right off the bat, what are your sales for today? It's like 3:30 p.m. Eastern time.
Today, I don't even know. We're at like almost 3,000 so
Wow.
far, which
Dude.
is it's pretty good. I found during Q4, like everything happens at night. I'm like, ooh, like sales are like the other day, like probably around 12, it was like 1,600. And we
Wow.
ended at like 5,000. Like when I woke up this morning, I was like, oh, okay, cool.
You're on the East Coast as well, right?
Yeah, East Coast.
New York, is it?
Pennsylvania.
Oh,
I
okay.
used to
All
live
right.
in New York, but I moved to Pennsylvania like probably 10 years ago.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, no, it's funny. Usually by like, I have a good understanding by lunchtime. I'm like, okay, I'm going to project, we're going to do this today. And sometimes it's accurate. And like you said, sometimes you wake up first thing in the morning, it's like, all right, this is good.
Yeah, and there's some other areas where like, oh, is something broken? Like, why
Yeah.
is there no sales? Or it's just like, or sometimes like some days Amazon is just broken, and
Right.
that's why there are no sales.
Yeah, that sounds pretty accurate. All of the good so far so greatly outweighs the bad that like you just what are you gonna do? You just it is what
Yeah,
it
just
is.
have to roll with it and just make the
Uh,
best of what's going on.
yeah, so let me say this. And I'm not just saying this. I follow a lot of other Amazon sellers, and something and I'm being honest when I say this, like something that pops out to me about the content that you share is just you seem like a genuinely like happy to help person, right? And like
Yeah,
there's some people online, they're like, the standard guru, you're posing in front of this car or that, and like you've had a lot of success, and like you're just like you're just very approachable online. And I know online, like it's not the whole picture, but you really come across that way. And so I just wanted to share that with you.
no, that yeah, and I try to be like helpful because a lot of people help me, like
Yeah.
just DMing people. Like I don't have the patience. I don't have to have like maybe I don't even know if they could do it, but like to scroll through Instagram like first DMs and
Yeah.
like just like post all of them.
Yeah.
But yeah, a lot of it's just yeah, it's intimidating, and a lot of the time I almost think like when I'm like reaching out to people, like I get a lot of inbound and almost don't do as much outbound
Mhm.
because I'm like, like I don't want to bother them or
Right.
whatever.
Right.
But like, and then I'm like, well, I don't want to reach. I'm always happy to talk about it or whatever. Now it's been harder as like it kind of grows to kind
Yeah.
of like stay on top of it, but making it work.
I definitely want to get to your growth, both not just Amazon, but social. I have questions about that as well. But for my sake and for everyone else, for one, I think we're actually on very similar parts in the journey in that we both transitioned 6, 7 months ago, like all in with online arbitrage. I
Yeah.
did retail for like 2 years and then I moved states, and the market and wanting to
Okay.
scale and stuff. It was just like, I know enough, but I had to start from ground zero. And from what I gather, you were previously doing books and eBay. So to take it a little further back, when did you discover reselling, and like how did you discover it? How did you get going? And how did you ultimately land on Amazon where you currently are?
Sure. So I really got started because I got a job. So I moved from New York, took like 3 or 4 months off, moved to Pennsylvania, and then found a job. And we basically, I had a good friend who's like a salary like negotiator. That's what he does for a
Mhm.
living. And so he gave me the script or whatever, and we couldn't meet. And he's just like, just be like, yo, like in 3 months, like if I do a good job, you're gonna give me this, and this is the new salary. I'm like, okay, cool. And they were like, okay, that's fair. So I get it. And then like when everyone else is getting like their raise at the end of the year, they're like, oh, like we already gave you one. And I was like, what? Like, no, like we negotiated like that
Yeah.
this was not a raise. Like I earned that.
Right.
Like so and then I was like, I have to make my own money. Like, I just can't. It was one of those things where, like, I got my own apartment because I was living with a friend, and it was just like, I kind of was banking on that. Like,
Yeah.
I wasn't like, I'm not one to like really cut it close. Like,
Right.
it was like, I'm fine if I don't get it, but like, I wanted it. So I was like, okay, like, I have to figure something out. And then I think I was watching. I was big into Gary Vee, like I still am, and he was doing like flea market or going to
Yeah.
garage sales, like flipping stuffed animals, and like I always had the idea of like reselling, but it sounded weird or like they're going to like I don't know, it's just like weird. But then when I saw him doing it, I'm like, well, this guy's like a millionaire, and like he's like I don't know why can't you do it?
Yeah.
And then I got started flipping furniture. I just went on like OfferUp or Let Go.
And let me
I
just
don't know.
ask you, John, real quick,
Yeah.
when, like, give me a year that about that job situation, and when would this happen with the Gary Vee stuff?
Uh, Probably like 4 years ago. So what are we
Okay.
in? Yeah, so like 2019-ish.
Okay. Got it.
Yeah. Um, so
And what,
yeah,
by the way, sorry, what was the other job? Like, what was your like life career, I guess, not life, like prior to this?
I was in marketing and
Okay.
social media. So I was
Got it.
just basically managing brands accounts. I was also doing copywriting.
Okay.
So I mean I love copywriting and kind of social media. But yeah, I was like, I'm gonna start with furniture. It's crazy today. Like I was so like I bought 4 chairs and like a set, and they wanted like $40, and like not proud of it. I was like, oh, I just moved. Like I like it was like kind of like not a lot, but I did kind of just move. And it was like, will you do $10? And I was like so afraid to like spend $10 to
Yeah.
like
Right.
dude, and it's like mind-boggling today, like based on what we're spending.
Yeah.
And
I know.
I was like, oh, so they're like, yeah, we can do that. So then I posted it on like Craigslist, and I think someone bought them like I don't know, maybe 5 days later for like $40. I'm like, interesting. So then like I was like sitting at work, and I was like just messaging people, and like this, I'll always remember. It's like this kid was like his sister was moving, and they had all this stuff, and like I didn't know like what was going on. Like back then I always thought like everyone had a single listing, but like you could like click on the person and see everything, but I
Right.
didn't know that. So I went to their house like 3 separate times, like just I didn't even realize. And I was buying stuff for like 10 and selling for 20. Like the idea was just to double the money. So if you
Yep.
spend 10, can you get 20? And I just kept doing that. And then it came down to like I had this like glass table. Like I don't even know why I had it. I had like 6 seats. Like I have like a single bedroom. Like why I need this, I have no idea. But I was like, I think I paid like $100 for it on like Marketplace, or maybe it was 150. Yeah, it was 150. And I was just like, I was running out of space. Like I needed space for furniture to like store furniture. And I was like, okay, you know what? Like someone will buy this for like $400. Like God, or I think it was like 450. I don't even remember what it was. But literally, like 2 hours later, someone's
Yeah.
like, "Will you do 400?
Yeah.
And can you deliver it?" I'm like done. Like, and that is like, oh, you don't have to double the money. You can like triple it,
It's
times it by
crazy.
4, times it by 5. Because like I was selling, I get like a table for 20 and sell it for 40, and it would go like that. And then I was like, no, 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 no. You get it for 20, you sell it for 100, and and it would sell like in 5 days still. And I was like, okay. And then I basically went to New York for the holidays, and then people are like, hey, I want this table. I'm like, okay, I'll be back in 6 days. They're like, nah, like we need it like now.
Yep.
And like, so those deals you really have to like, it's like very day of, like even waiting the next day is like super
Yeah.
risky. Like that was always my move. It's like, will you take $50? I'll come right now. Like
That
that kind of
it's
thing.
so funny you say that, because, and I've made posts about this. I've always been in the reselling game, even without knowing it. But like, I remember specifically, I was flipping IKEA furniture, and so there's only so much variety. So I would focus on like two bed frames and certain models. They don't make, So I very quickly understood what they were going to sell for. So I knew what I had to buy it for. And this was like this was during Craigslist days. I'm 35. So like I was doing Craigslist, and I'm not kidding you. I used to do IKEA furniture. I had a storage unit,
Wow.
cargo trailers. But what you're saying struck a memory. I was thinking I would buy somebody who would be selling like kitchen appliance set. I would agree upon a price verbally, and then I would list it for sale on Craigslist before I took possession of it for like double the price. And I'm not kidding you, it works, right? And
That's
you have
crazy.
nothing to lose if for some reason you can't get your hands on it,
Exactly. Wow.
So
Yeah. So yeah, I realized that kind of sucked because like I was losing a lot of money and couldn't. And then it started to get like as it was growing. I mean,
Right. It's
for
hard to scale.
scale, I think we did like 25K like the first year, kind of like
That's
just
pretty
back and
good,
forth.
man.
Yeah, no, it was awesome. And yeah. And then I was just like, I need something that like can work where like if I'm traveling, like stuff can
Yeah.
still sell. Cause like during the holiday, like I'm always going to New York or like
Right.
my girlfriend's from like another place. So like we'll travel both. And it's like, well, it's almost like a week or two out of that. Like,
Yeah.
so I was like, okay, like back to the drawing board. And then I saw a Reezy resell video and he was talking about selling books. And I was like, I don't know, this sounds scammy or whatever.
Yeah.
But like I did it. And like one of the first books I got said it was like selling for like $40 on Amazon. And like the back of the book was like sell this for like 25.99. I'm like,
Yeah.
this really is a scam. Like this is I was like, whatever, like
Yeah.
just follow along and like do what they're saying and just go from there. And sure enough, like 2 weeks later, the book sold for like $40. And I
Wow.
was like, geez, like
Yeah.
and then I just went all in and just started thrifting every weekend pretty much, doing like road trips, all that kind of stuff, and just slowly built the business. It took probably like 2 years before I quit my job, or it was like a year and a half, maybe.
Okay. I was just going to ask you. So you said weekends, road trips. That was in addition to working a full-time job.
Oh yeah. I didn't
Yeah.
quit
Okay.
my full time job until yeah, I think it was like a year and a half in about. It
Okay.
wasn't 2 years, it was just like a year and a half. And like, yeah, it's so funny like to look back. It's like, oh, I would have done it so much differently, like if I were to go
Of
back.
course. Yeah.
Be like that, like just think about like doing the whole thrift store thing. And like, I'm not like saying it's bad to do. It's just like now doing what I do now, I'm like,
Yeah.
what were you thinking driving like 5 hours or 4 hours and like staying the night, like hitting all the stores down,
You
hitting
don't
all the
know what you
stores
don't
back.
know. You don't like, and
Yeah,
you know what? It's easy to say that now, but you only connect the dots when you look backwards,
bro,
you know?
that is very true. And then yeah, I went from there, and then I was like, I'm tired of going to all these thrift stores. Like, I sort of like it's like funny. Like I don't know how long you've been reselling, but like there's just these like waves. Like
Yeah.
it used to be like so cool to be a bookseller. Like now no one cares. Like you have to be doing
That
OA
was the
or
move.
like
Yeah.
some crazy private label thing.
Yeah.
Like that was like the path, bookseller, and like if you made it, like you do wholesale or like private label. Like I
Yep.
didn't really know much OA stuff. Um, but yeah, I was like, you know what? So for me, like the next progression was like bulk books.
Yep.
And I was just like, okay, like that's the next step. So like I got like 2 storage units. I started like it was just crazy. Like I don't even
Yep.
know how I did it on the storage units, like after like getting the warehouse.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it's just a crazy like progression like through it.
So you start with books, you build yourself up. I was going to ask you, so you went storage units. I know from social you have a warehouse. I know
Yeah.
you've weaned off of the books, but like what was the turning point you went from books? I know you've been doing OA for like 6, 7 months now. Like what was the tipping point?
So the tipping point for me was it
And
was the so good.
I was just going to say, and by the way, I was under the impression you were doing books on eBay, or were you doing so eBay and Amazon when you
Yeah,
were doing
eBay
those?
and yeah, FBA books, MF books, and then so it was like
Okay.
three separate like kind of things.
Okay. Got it.
Um, but yeah, so like I kind of so basically I quit my job. It was like literally right before COVID. Like I remember going to like a book flipper conference, and then it was like in October, I think. And then like I kind of got back, and then kind of got like situated with bulk. I already had a supplier, and then like COVID happened, and like
Yeah.
my one supplier was like, "We're not allowed to like." They were from I don't know Maryland, and they're like, "We can't come into Pennsylvania. Like
Okay.
we're not allowed to." But what like craziness.
Yeah.
So he's like, "I can't like give you any bucks." I'm like shit. Like I don't know what I'm gonna do. Like because I literally just like quit my job. I'm like,
Right.
okay, like you could go back to thrift, like whatever.
Yeah.
So I was like working with another person. I just started working with another person. Like, ah, their stuff's not as good. But I was like, well, this is what I got. So like I
Yeah.
started working with him. And then like PA shut down. And like he wasn't able to operate. So he was just like, sorry. Like I was like, I don't know what to do. So like I had all these books like in the two because like no one was picking them up. Like for those who don't know, bulk books, if you're doing out of storage unit, is super difficult because like you really need three things to work. Like you have to have someone deliver them, you have to have someone pick up all the bad stuff, and before you can get a new delivery. So
Yeah.
like if any one person drops out at a point in time, it messes up the whole circle.
Right.
So I was just like, all right, like let me see if I can start doing eBay. And then I was like I really don't have the stuff, but like I was able to make some sets, set extra time. I was like, okay, and then I came across the OA challenge by Chris Grant and did that.
Hmm.
It's like, you know what, I'm gonna do OA. And my theory was like, you know what, Amazon says they don't want books, like because you weren't allowed to send books in. It was only like health or household stuff
Okay.
during the pandemic, and they're like, we
Okay.
don't know when we're like opening
I
up
didn't know
again.
that. Okay.
Yeah, and I was like, I never want to be in this situation again. I was like, I need to learn how to sell like essential goods because like
Right.
if this does happen again, like I'm gonna be good. So I like was like, oh man, like OA is like hard, and like the course is really good. Like it's
Yeah.
great. But then my supplier out of the blue was like, hey, like I don't care about the rules. Like if you don't take a delivery, like I was like done. And I was like,
Yeah.
because I just like quit my job. So I was like, yeah, like this is great, but like I need to get going like on what's working. So then like yeah, we just kind of went through there, and then yeah, eventually it just doesn't, you can only do so much out of storage units.
Right.
Like I was doing some eBay like in my apartment, but there's only so much storage. Like
Yeah.
so you're only taking the best stuff.
Right.
Um and then yeah, we kind of got a warehouse, and the dream was like, oh, I'm gonna start buying like truckloads of books, and we're gonna get a forklift and a dumper and all this stuff. And it
Yeah.
was like, yeah, it kind of worked. And then like once like everything looked good on paper, and like it was like what was the next step. But then like actually doing it, I was like, I don't know if I like this.
Yeah.
Like
I get it.
to take it just well, and then restock limits happen. I
Yeah.
literally get the warehouse, and 2 months later, they're like, oh, you can't send anything in. It was like I had space, it was at like 7,000. I was like, oh, I have like 4,000 books, like that's fine. Like I'm sure it's gonna go up. And then I cut in half, and then I had to like destroy like 1,000 books, like, and then I was like, oh man, you should have just like learned the OA,
Yeah.
like when you had the chance, because now you're in the same situation. And then I was like, all right, like I have to merchant and fill now, like which I did want to do for books, and
Yeah.
then restock limits like kind of went away, and then they hit again. I was like, that's it, like I'm learning OA, like I don't care. Um, so I just started learning it, doing the books. So that became like the new side hustle, like on the
Yeah.
side of books. Cause like I just couldn't like let that go because like there's like warehouse expenses and like all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
So I was like, I gotta
How
keep
much is
this
that
going.
warehouse, by the way? If you don't mind sharing.
With everything, like
Yeah.
electric, like 3 grand a
Okay.
month, which is
Okay. So
super
that's a
cheap.
nice chunk. Like,
Oh yeah, it's a for other people I talk to at warehouses like what, that's it, like they're paying like twice
yeah.
as much, but like it's like in the middle of like nowhere in Pennsylvania kind of
So
deal.
if you're getting rid of books, are you gonna eventually just let the lease run dry and like for OA, since I know you use prep centers and stuff, or what is that the plan?
Yeah, lease is up in January,
Okay.
so I'm
That's
not
cool.
doing it.
Good
Yeah, I
timing.
stopped selling books totally in July.
Okay.
And eBay, I was like, I need to auction all this stuff off. It was
Yeah.
like such a disaster because like I didn't think it through, and like people got books for like 199. It was like totally not worth it to
Yeah.
like have to ship that out. But I didn't really think that. I was like,
Yeah.
I'm so tired of this. I'm just putting it on auction, and then I was like,
Yeah.
oh man, like you didn't think that through. But yeah, so I stopped books totally in July. I couldn't do both. That's like one of like probably the hardest learned thing. It's like you have to focus on one thing. It's like I basically had like three mini businesses. Yes, it's all book related,
Yeah.
but like eBay is a different beast. Merchant with filled books is like
Yeah.
not something you want to be doing, like sending out like 40 or 50 random books. Granted, I didn't have like the right system in place to do that. But and then FBA, and then to be like, oh yeah, like I'm gonna start doing OA, and like I have no idea what I'm doing. So like I just tried to play around with it, where it's like 1 week is OA, 1 week
Yeah.
is books, and then like I'd be like, oh, books is going like falling apart. Like I'm just gonna do that. And it's like, oh, OA is falling apart. Like you just keep doing books, like you're never gonna get to OA. And then like I just kept falling into that trap. So I'm like, that's it. I'm selling all the book equipment, so I
Yeah.
can't do it. And that's what I did. I sold And I was like, okay, like this is what you're stuck with. Like you got to
Yeah.
do OA.
It's funny. I think anyone with like an entrepreneurial spirit, I certainly think I am this way. Shiny object syndrome. There's so many things you can do and so many ways to make a buck, but at the same time, consistency compounds so drastically. So
It
like
does.
I find myself very torn because I do have a small business outside of this that I want to grow, and a conversation for another day. But the bottom line is I'm somewhere between understanding that if you are down to focus on one thing, you're going to be a lot better at that than three other things that half-assed.
Yeah.
But at the same time, the way that I'm wired, I like the variety. So it's
Mhm.
finding a balance. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'm still
No, I
tinkering with
totally,
that.
yeah. Like my, I guess, balance is social media, like YouTube
Right.
kind of thing. Like that's how I kind of look at it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that's like, this has probably been one of the hardest years in the business just because
Yeah.
like having to make that decision and just like cutting it off. Like I felt I didn't really, I guess, account for the learning curve
Hmm.
of OA. And I was like,
Yes.
whatever. Like everyone says on Instagram, like you just put it on your credit card and like
I
by
know.
the time like Amazon pays you, like you have it for your bill. And like so I stopped a lot of cash flow in books. Like it kind of went down like
Yeah.
recently because like I wasn't sending any more in or not enough. And I was like, oh man. And then like I finally just like once I stopped, like that the 2 months after that were like really brutal, but
Yeah.
like nothing crazy, but it's just like did I make a huge mistake? Like am I
Yeah.
gonna like not am I gonna make it, but I was like, man, like but I couldn't do books. So I sold all the stuff. So I was
Yeah.
like, there you are. And then like,
Sometimes
yeah,
it's good to not be left with the choice. Like your decision's made for you.
exactly. Cause like every time OA got hard, I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna order another batch of books and like,
Yeah.
I need more time to like
Yeah.
I was like, no, like you need to like look at more stuff and do more stuff. And then yeah, once I stopped books totally, like we went from like 20 a month to 40 to 50 to like 55 to like 76.
Okay.
And hopefully
I
we'll
was
do
literally
like
just gonna ask you, like, walk us through the progression. And like I just saw and now in you just posted a video that I actually watched last night to freshen up, and you did 100K in your last 30 days, the time of the video, which is incredible, right?
yeah,
And something you said in that I'm such a believer in, and I love hearing it from other people, but like everyone wants the secret sauce, and all it is simple tools consistently working, right? And like just consistently showing up. And like and the reason I say that, because I know you literally shared that in your video, like there's no secret. And I love that you said that, because I couldn't agree more. And I think so many people want to just like they want to be at the destination without having to go through the trials and tribulations,
yeah,
right? And like so we totally share the same sentiment. Like there's no secret. You source every day consistently, not even for 8 hours, a couple hours a day. It's going to really pay
yeah.
off. So I was going to ask you about like, you know, how I think a lot of people are very curious in the blueprint of people at your level that have been doing this and have proven success. Like, can you give us, I know no 2 days are the same, but like maybe what a typical day looks like for you? How many hours are you sourcing? How much admin? How much prep and pack? Now I know it's Q4, but let's say
Yeah.
during normal times.
During normal time, so the business is it's in a weird stage where like I always like, oh, when I got to like the 100K like in 30 days, it was like, okay, like that is good, like that's good, like
Yeah.
awesome. But like with that came a lot of problems, like that you had to solve. It's like, oh, like once I hit that, like I'll be good. But it's like, no, like tracking like 3 or 4 thousand things you bought in like the last
Yeah.
4 weeks. Like, where is it? Like, what's missing? Like there's
Yeah.
just a massive
More
like,
money, more problems,
yeah,
right?
more cash flow. Like, how
Yeah.
do you like make sure you're doing fine? And it's just like, yeah, it's just you just got to keep like kind of like almost just, like pushing through it. But typical day, I like to wake up early, so I get up at like 5:30.
Yep.
Just really depends. I get to work. I'm usually like reviewing the VA leads, or I actually always check Amazon first to like kind of see what happened yesterday. To make sure there's like no like IP like account
Yeah.
health is fine,
Yep.
no like big fires or whatever. After that, like I'll review the VA's leads. And then yeah, I like to source. I actually changed that. Actually, I source first. I like to source before I look at the VA leads.
Hmm.
Just because like I like to stay like sharp and like there's certain things that I want to do. So I'll do that and then I'll review their leads
And how
and
many
kind of see
hours
what
are you sourcing a day?
depend maybe like 1 to 2 hours. It
Okay.
just really depends on what's going on. Like we didn't really buy anything the last week because like we
You
spent
spent
like
so much.
65K
Yeah, I
like
know. I saw that.
like
Well, I
so
want to
it's just
get to
like
that. We'll talk about that. Yeah.
so I was like, all right, like you need to chill out, bro, because like you gotta like there's like a lot of opportunity there, but like you also are gonna have like this huge like
Yeah,
I mean, we are like we'll be fine to like pay everything, but it's like how much do I want to push it? Like I don't like I feel like I'm at the stage where it's been pushed and it's like any more over that, it's gonna be start to get like nervous and I just don't want to do that right now.
totally.
Um
And let me ask you a question on that because I was actually going to ask you that. Is that without getting like personal, is that a capital thing or is that a I'm not comfortable mentally, emotionally, spiritually, whatever, laying out more than that because maybe Amazon's still kind of the wild, wild west. I have my whole life ahead of me. I can double down next year. I think the reason I asked that is because I think a lot of people, especially again, they won't get rich quick and they see things online. It's like some people talk about just taking out credit card. I'm like, you're going to end up paying crazy interest. Like it's not going to come back to you fast enough. So why did you say, and by the way, 65 is a ton, but like, why did you say I'm good for a minute?
Well, I guess so. It's actually more than 65 because like that's kind of like the discounted like
Okay.
so when you shop at some stores, like they're like, oh, every $100 you spend, you're gonna get 10% back. So like you have to like you're paying like $100,
Right.
but you're using that like $10 later on.
Yeah.
So you're actually paying out more, but
I
then
got
like
you.
when the buy cost gets leveled when everything's free. But yeah, it's more just like I don't know. I feel like a lot of people or people I've known that grew really fast say they almost grew too fast. Just like kind of be like, oh man, like, once you get to around 100K, like there's a lot of stuff that like leaks. And I'm starting to see it, not that like we're doing a bad job or I'm doing a bad job. It's just like, okay, like take a breath. Like understand it's like Q4 and everything, but like just the tracking of inventory, like when
Yep.
you're starting to order, like we do a lot of apparel,
Yeah.
and it's like, if you order 50, you don't get 50, you get like 20 or 30 packages of like one or two or
Right.
three.
Right.
And it's like tracking all that. Like, did we get all that? And it's
Yeah.
like, well, no, but like if we bought like 300 things, like we got 300 things, but like they weren't necessarily the colors and the sizes.
Yeah.
So it's like, I guess we're good because like
Is it
it
worth going on a phone
it
call with customer service?
yeah, it's
Like,
not. It's like, oh, it's still profitable.
yeah.
Like some of the stuff,
No,
like
I
we
get it.
bought more of that size anyway.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, we're just gonna lop it in there. Um, and yeah, I mean, I feel like, yeah, it was just like I don't want to push it any further.
Okay.
Like we have like plenty of like I have really good credit, and it's like
Yeah.
I could have pushed it like probably another 50K maybe. Um, but it's just like I learned the hard way, I think too. Like when I first started, everyone's like, "Yeah, get all these credit cards," and like I did that, but like I didn't like I knew when stuff was due, but like
Yeah.
when you're rotating between like four cards, it's like hard to keep track of. Now we're
Yeah.
only really using like two cards, and that's very or like we're just using American Express. Like it's very easy to like log in every morning, be like, okay, here's where we're at.
Yeah.
Like when you have like different cards, like it gets confusing. So I was just like, you know what, like we're on pace to do like 120. Like just to put it in perspective, it's like the highest month we've spent before this month was like 30.
Yeah.
So that's like
Right.
twice.
I know.
Like looking at 30, like it sounds ridiculous and crazy, but like looking at 30, you're like, like
Yeah.
as you grow up, like I thought it was crazy to spend like $1,000 on books,
Yeah.
but then as I grew, I was like, that's it. Like we're spending
Yeah.
five, six, like, and then
So, yeah.
that becomes like not that much, and then
No, I
as you
know.
go, so I was like, but that 65, like that hit like different. It was like,
Yeah, I
whoa,
bet. So, okay.
like whoa.
So you're sourcing hour, 2 hours a day. You have one VA, two VAs, what?
I have two VAs
Okay.
right now. So yeah.
And so you're going through their leads. And then so take it from there.
So I'm going through there. Maybe I'm sourcing maybe closer to 3 hours now that
Okay.
you say that. And then yeah, most of it it's kind of admin stuff
Yep.
sometimes. Like whether it's and I have to. I think one of the big changes I need to make next year is like have I don't now that I have like a catalog built up of stuff that works, I
Mhm.
can kind of rotate through that.
Yeah.
So like I don't need as many leads for the VIs, but
Yeah.
like I could like have them do admin stuff probably to like
Okay.
free up more time. Um, so yeah, it's either like filling out the prep center sheet or like
Okay.
probably social media, YouTube.
Yep.
Like
Yeah,
it
that stuff's
seems
time consuming.
ridiculous, but like
Yeah.
start a YouTube channel, like make a video, make a thumbnail, and
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
like 3 4 hours of like work or whatever,
Sure.
depending on what you're doing. So like I have a VA for that who's like part time, who's kind of helping out with that. And then yeah, like this Q4, like it's just been like a lot of sourcing. It's just
Yeah.
like you go home at night, it's like, oh, like let me see if
Yeah.
Target put anything on or Walmart or
And you're
whatever.
prepping and packing in Q4 because of time
Yeah.
being of the essence, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, same.
Which
Same.
which I don't so I like have notes. I keep notes. Like I did it last Q4, like I'm kind of the sales that are going on or like kind of like how I felt or like and I feel like knowing what I know now, I probably would have spent like 3 times as much money like in the beginning of November.
Yep.
Like there's a huge sale and like I don't know. Well, it would really depend because like you spend 3 times as much. Like, can you sell all that before like you really need it? But the
Yeah.
idea would be like to send all that to prep
Yeah. I get it.
because I was spending like 12K the next like 2 weeks. Oh, they do the sale again, another 12. I would have just been better off like sending it all to prep, like letting them deal with that,
Yeah.
and then it would all get to Amazon by like Black Friday, like hypothetically.
Yeah. Well, listen, you live and learn, right?
Yeah,
I always say Amazon is a long-term play, even despite your gaudy numbers. Like I've been around long enough to know that, you know, whether it's you, me, anyone with like numbers that are really great, like it's not like because you're going to profit a ton in December, right?
yeah,
It's not like your bank account all of a sudden instantly reflects that because you're constantly spending money on inventory, feeding the beast, right?
yeah,
And so and I say that to say about the long-term play, like it takes a while to build up cash flow and I want to get to cash flow, but like, yeah, so now for next Q4 and the next
yeah,
five Q4s, right? Like it's like your first Q4, if my math is correct, for going all in
yeah,
on OA, and you're crushing, you know?
yeah.
Yeah. So it's something I just want to point out to people if they listen, like I think that a lot of people think there's a misconception on how the quantity of time you have to spend sourcing every day, right? Like anything, you get better and better. And I just want to share that, like I do the 5 a.m. thing. I'm a morning person. I'm not saying
Yeah,
people should be, but every day, maybe 2 good hours, like really deep focused sourcing 4 to 5 days a week. I'm a one-man crew and that's it. And it just continues to roll over. And every day you get better and better. And like, I think very few people and by the way, so doing that, I spend, let's say 30 to 40K a month, right?
mhm.
So, and I have, like you said, I work on YouTube, I have my other business. So I'm not trying to make it about me. I want people to understand once you get going and there's a big learning curve up front, it doesn't take that long to start sourcing. You find one brand, one store, you start to crush those and it's a snowball, you know?
No, I think
Good.
that's a really important point that like you brought up. Is just like I had at least one or two YouTube videos on that. It's like the reason you're not finding a lot of stuff is like you're not sourcing as much as you think. You're
Yeah.
like, I'm guilty of it. Like, I'm like, oh, like let's see what's going on Instagram or
Yep.
like, and then it's like 4 hours. You're like, well, I found nothing, but it's like, well, if you're on Instagram a half hour, like you went to the bathroom, you
Yeah.
did that, like it's really whittled down. Or like anytime someone's like, oh, like it spent like about an hour, it's like you
Yeah.
probably spent like 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Like
I mean,
if you
it's
spend
funny.
about no one spends about an hour sourcing. Like you need
Right.
at least like two.
I agree. And for me at least, I mean, I think not to get into the science and stuff a bit, but I'm convinced just physically, like I've tinkered with my schedule so much. We only have so much like deep work in us every single day. You know, like
Yeah.
administrative, writing a script, packing, that stuff is easy, doesn't take a lot of mental fortitude. Sourcing, like locked in, I find 2 to 3 hours. And then after that, I'm like fried, you know?
Yeah.
And it also is just enough that it keeps me excited coming back. You know, it's like a fine balance. So it, you know, that, yeah. So that's my take on that. So yeah, so okay. I'm glad you shared that. You do have some VAs. As far as a prep center is concerned, when did you make that jump, and how has your experience been? I know you had a bad experience. I
Yeah,
remember
I
you
had a really
saying.
bad
What
experience.
and I'm curious what you could learn from that, like with the red flags. But like, tell me about your current situation.
So right now, I had a really really good prep center, and then they decided that like they didn't want to use inventory labs anymore, and
Mm,
like they're gonna use some other platform, and like they're like, oh, it's gonna be so much quicker, but like it's quicker for them. Like
right.
it's like double entry. Like no, like that's
Okay.
just not gonna work for me. The first one was it went really well at first, and then basically like they just stopped working, and it was one of those where like someone I was new, so like bigger sellers like, oh yeah, we use this place, Tiger Lily,
Yep.
and I was like, okay, like whatever. And then yeah, they stopped sending out inventory. And then I posted in a Facebook group and someone was like, oh, like, I live there, like I could ride down there. And then they took pictures and it like turned out it was like a trailer
Yeah.
and there was like Kohl's boxes and stuff like all over like in the grass.
Oh.
And I was like, oh my God. And then like everyone got screwed and like it just took like forever to get it. And then like I was just like I really didn't do any like due diligence here. Like I
Yeah.
talked to someone on Instagram that like I was somewhat friendly with and a couple other people and they were like,
Yeah.
yeah, like they were much bigger than I was and they're just like, yeah, we use them. And then yeah, it just went kind of bad. And yeah, what I would learn, like I never talked to them on the phone. Like
Yeah.
that was a big mistake. Not asking to see like a picture of like the facility.
Yeah.
I thought that would be like ridiculous, but like after I saw that, I was like, no. And yeah, I think I might have gotten a prep center like too early. I would
Hmm.
say that like there's a lot of stuff on Instagram and stuff, or even YouTube that people are going to consume. Like you don't like I get that on like when do I need a VA and like when do I get a prep center? It's like it took like you'll know when you need
Yep.
one. Like you'll know. Like it's either
Completely
too
agree.
much to work to do and like you have to outsource that. Like I think that's a big like misconception. Everyone's like, oh, like prep work is like low value and it is, but like if you don't know how to do it, like you don't know how to work with a prep center because like you don't know how it's supposed to be prepped. Like, you know what I mean? There's some stuff where like, look, why is it doing like but if you don't know, like everything has to be like polybag or like putting four things in a bag versus
Yep.
putting two things in a bag, like it takes a lot more time. We're like, oh, okay, that makes sense. But yeah, I would say like you just got to do your homework on this stuff and like focus on making money, not like
Yeah.
looking
You
cool on
found you
like
found a
Instagram.
good one though, but now you have a good one.
Yeah, like one of the issues I'm having is so like the prep centers are in Montana, and like there's just I think I need to find one on the East Coast because
Okay.
they send to like not great warehouses. Like it just takes so slow. So
Yeah.
like I'm in PA and like supposedly like we're in a pretty good like spot for shipping and hubs like that.
Yeah.
So like there's a warehouse that like most of my stuff goes to that's like 4 hours away.
Yeah.
So what happens, it goes to like Montana and then it takes longer to get there because there's
Right.
not much going there or as much.
Yeah.
And then they send it to like Indiana. So now it's like going all and that takes like 4 or 5 days. So UPS just came. So he comes, this stuff will be there like tomorrow or the next day. So I already shaved like 5 or 6 days
Yeah.
off of
Right.
that. And that doesn't even include the prep of it. So you're like almost 2 weeks ahead, but like, and then check-in times are slow in that warehouse.
Let me interject here, and I want to drive this point home too because I'm in the same boat. I think that so many people think it's so cool to have this hands-off business, and ultimately it could be great, right? But
Yeah.
if you don't know how to prep and pack, how are you going to find a good prep center? If you don't know how to source, how are you going to tell your VA to source? Like, you have to be willing to put in some time. Everybody wants to go straight to work smart, but nobody
Yeah.
gets to work smart without working hard first, and like, I got to be honest, I've yet to hear somebody rave about a prep center. I've yet to ever hear somebody be like, "Oh, it's the best." And like, to me, it's funny you say that. I know on an hourly basis, prepping and packing is not a high value task, but also knowing that I don't have to send them a list, I don't have to manage people, I can get it out as quick as I want. And when I'm doing it, I'm watching YouTube on educational stuff. So, like, rather than
That was a good
watching
point.
Netflix, pay myself $15 an hour, if you want to put it that way, or however you
I
want to
actually
do it.
never
Now, I
really
will
thought
say,
about
obviously,
that.
I
Like
will
the
say it's different.
aggravation of like, did they get the stuff? Like they lost the stuff?
That's,
Like,
yeah,
is it there? Like, when are they gonna like a good example is like if you work in a prep center that ships out for you only once, it's like the stuff that comes that day that they're shipping out for you doesn't go out to next week.
yeah,
So like if they ship out on Thursday and something comes Friday,
right.
like you're like 7 days like behind.
What so to give some context, last month I did 56K in sales. I use a prep center in Florida. Now that's not a sales tax free state. And by the way, obviously you save money in, but that's where I'm from originally. And I know grocery and vitamins are tax free there.
Yeah,
And I
that's
have
smart.
some sales tax certificates in that state. So I use them for that. I also started using my mom in that
Nice.
state as well. And I'm telling you what, if you have a family or a friend that's into it, like, they're going to be, pay them instead of a stranger, and you could be frank with them. And like, I think that is such a great way to go. Like, I'm an
That
advocate for
is,
that.
I like that a lot. Yeah, and I would like, yeah, I think that is like one of the better ways to do it. And yeah, it's definitely a good way. And like, I think that's what if I continue to sell apparel, like there's no tax in Pennsylvania. So I could use a prep center in Pennsylvania.
Right.
Same with grocery here. So like,
Right.
it just doesn't have to be in like the big six. And
Yep.
maybe now that I think about it, maybe you'll have like a better prep center experience because more people are like looking at the five tax
Totally.
free places and not like, oh, like I buy like 70% apparel, like, oh, like I could use any place in PA if they do
Yeah.
a good job.
I have a theory that a lot of these prep centers like they know that they've got you because there's only so many states, but I'm telling you, mark my words, a prep center is going to come up with like, they're going to really advance the quality of their website. Nothing revolutionary. Maybe have a camera where you can live stream them packing your stuff, an app,
Yeah, I could see that.
like a prep center needs to get, I have ideas. It's just not what I want to do, but like, there's a lot of opportunity in the prep center game that has not been properly handled as a general statement, because again, I've spoken to enough sellers and nobody is raving about it. And the fact that it's the biggest bottleneck and the biggest reason that people want to outsource, it's just like something's gonna guy has to disrupt it a little bit. So
Yeah, I mean, I think it's also like a tough problem to solve. Like, think about what you buy times
yeah,
20,
yeah,
and then it's like for 20 other people, it's like,
yeah.
okay, like sort that, pack that, like track that,
Oh,
like it's like, wow, like
I
that's a
know.
lot.
I know. So, okay. So we got an idea of like your day to day. You've grown incredibly quickly. So let's get into a topic that I don't think gets nearly enough talk about, and that's cash flow. Okay. And let me preface with like my general understanding at this point. So for people, I've done RA, which is way less capital intensive. As I mentioned, 6, 7 months ago, all in at RA. Okay. So, like, if somebody is scaling quickly, like yourself, right, you're likely spending at a quicker rate than, not quicker necessarily, but like, if you make 10 grand in a month, you're not bringing that home, and I don't think enough
Yeah,
people understand that are new to the game. They see these huge numbers online, and it's like something that I just have a personal like mission to do is be like, I'm not anti Amazon, obviously, but let's say, basically my understanding to level out cash flow, you either get to a certain limit and then you consistently stay at that spending budget very consistently. and then eventually everything will just and stick to your parameters, or you just continue to increase the ROI requirement. So you spend less to make the same amount.
Yeah.
Like, what's your general take on that? And just cash flow is a topic. And like, what do you think of the general understanding of it?
I don't think anyone really has a good, like, obviously the bigger sellers obviously have like a grasp on it because,
Right.
it's almost impossible to like run a business like that
Yeah.
unless like, so I've been able to grow so quickly because basically what happened was we had a successful book business. Like
Yeah.
I probably could have doubled it what I did last year, but I didn't want to do what was required to do that. And just looking at the future, I was like, no, like I
Yeah.
don't see a lot unless you want to do merchant fulfill, which I don't.
Right.
So I had like a good like probably 30K like to put into this like from the start. I
Yep.
didn't put that in from the start until like, it kind of like made sense. But I do think like I'm a big fan of like the Plum card, the American Express card,
Mhm.
like responsibly. Like,
Right.
I like to have Q4 like bent this out of shape a little bit, but like I almost like to have what's in the business bank account. Like if American Express called today,
Yeah.
like I'd be able to clear that balance, whether that would be good, whether the account went to zero or not. Like,
Right.
I kind of, that's kind of one of the reasons, like, I didn't keep pushing
Yeah.
through 65 because I was like, okay, like, I don't have all that right now. And, like, you know, I don't know, like, they don't check in. Like, it's just like,
Yeah.
no, like, this is as much as I'm willing to push it at this point. And next
Yeah.
year, it'll probably be like 100K or whatever,
Yeah.
or whatever I decide to do. But I do think that's one of the bigger misconceptions. It's like, you also have to realize too, it's like when you buy this water bottle, you send it in, like you're buying it at the best thing. Yeah, you look at the keep, all that stuff, like checks out. But then it's like, well, I buy it, you buy it, and then maybe I'm feeling in a good mood, and like I send like 3 people on Instagram, like buy this water bottle or whatever. It really depends on volume. I'm not sharing with
Yeah.
3 people, but like, 1 or 2 people, and then it's like you get there, and now all of a sudden, like it's not profitable. So I feel like everyone thinks like you're gonna send money in and like take exactly what you're seeing on the screen out.
Yeah.
Like, oh, like I saw these Nike shoes, I'm gonna make $100. Like, yeah, but like they're probably gonna get returned. Number one. Number two, like you and everyone else is buying them because like Nike's doing like 60 to 80% off.
Right.
And then it's like, well, like if the price tanks, like how like, you know, now instead of like you're losing $20
Yeah.
instead of making like 40. So I do think it's not like, oh, like if it breaks even, it's like, yeah, sometimes it's like the best case scenario, but like there are times where you just have to like take the loss
Oh
on
yeah.
it and like move on. So I think that's a big misconception that like people don't take losses on this stuff.
Oh yeah.
And
Losses all the
like,
time. I take, I
yeah,
mean, you make calculated decisions, but just I mean, it's a numbers game. And of course, not everything's going to be profitable or not even that, just not like a huge winner. Like, and that's okay. I literally made a post yesterday, like even when I reprice heavily every 2 weeks, or whatever it is, it's not because, oh, I bought it at this time and I'm hoping it's going to go back to that. How many sellers are on here? What is it now selling for? Let's make a realistic guess. If it's not
yeah.
going to work, get our money back. Let's keep it moving, and that's it.
Yeah, personally, I like to like I don't buy optimistically. Like
Right.
I'm not,
I,
like for Legos in Q4, like I got crushed last year because everyone's like, oh, like Amazon went out of stock last
yeah.
year. Like they're definitely and like none of the stuff went out of stock. Maybe
Yeah.
like 1 or 2 sets out of like the 12 that I bought.
Yeah.
Um, so like it has to be profitable, like when I buy it. I mean, yeah, there's times where I'm just like, maybe it's only a $3 profit. I think it's gonna be 10, like
Yeah.
in like a couple weeks. Yeah, sure, like I'm down for that. Like I'm always like looking at the break even. Like
Yep.
if the break even price has been like hit, like probably in the year, like I'm usually passing on that lead.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's like very different. Like there's a lot of other things that go into it,
I think that's
but
great
very
advice. I mean, the
picky.
general, like basically what you're saying is that like if you're okay with what appears to be the worst case scenario,
Yeah.
then you're going to be okay. But also like don't look for reasons to buy it, look for reasons not to buy it. And then
Yeah.
if it still makes sense, you're going to be in a good position.
Yeah, no, I think that is like a really big thing to like, yeah, it's like also too, it's like, it's really hard. Like the more I grow, the harder it becomes to track stuff and like really, I mean, we're doing like a good job, but like it
Yeah.
has to get much tighter to like to keep going at this pace.
Yeah.
But it's like the orange bars, like that's not revenue. I mean, hypothetically, but like, so like a lot of things, it's like, well, like if you look at your bars and you look at inventory labs, like they don't line up.
Yeah.
So your bars just keep your sales, but
Yeah.
they don't. So it's like if you're doing like $6,000 today, and someone returns something for like $1,000,
Yeah.
your bars don't go down to
Yeah.
five, but your bounce goes down $1,000, whatever that was.
Yeah.
Like,
No,
so it's
totally.
like,
I I've really sat down with myself and kind of, I think there's a point of diminishing return unless you just, and everyone's different. So this isn't one size fits all, but just sharing my perspective, it's like I was doing RA, it was so tight. Like when I mean tight, I mean like 30K a month in sales, that's 7-8 grand profit. Like it was manageable, it wasn't a ton of SKUs, and I continued to grow and grow. And I'm like, okay, now I have a prep center part time. That's something else to manage, something else where things fall through the crack. Now I'm ordering way more volume. Inevitably, things are falling through the crack, right? So I guess my message to a lot of people is like, you know, scaling isn't for everybody, and it is for some people. Like you need to have an honest conversation with yourself. Like I really kind of like my schedule right now. Two hours sourcing 4 or 5 days a week. I have time for my other stuff, my other business. Hopefully make 6 7K a month plus some cash back. Like I'm not
yeah.
overly stressed. I'm like, this isn't horrible, like,
I
you
know
know,
someone's doing $3 million, and they're like, this is where we're staying.
right.
Like, we're not growing this. Like, this is what we
Yeah.
want to do. Like, we want to hang out with our friends. We want to do things with our kids. And like, this
And
is where we're staying.
I think that's something that's so great about Amazon is that you can make, if you want $500 a month spending money, or you want to try to become a millionaire, both is possible. It's really
Yeah.
interesting. All right. So I have a few questions here, more like just short form answers I want to go over with you. And I try to keep some of the beginners in mind because I don't know about you. So many people ask questions that become second nature, but I think could
Yeah.
really help some people
Agreed.
out. So let me ask you, how do you, and this was something I still struggle with, how do you come to terms with spending so much money and not worrying about horror stories like deactivation and stuff like that that you hear about? Now I know it's very rare, but like I'm curious of your psyche about that.
So I'm like very hardcore about this. I think a lot of people who get suspended, like, will just say, oh, like, Amazon just kicked me
Yeah.
off. Like, oh, the product expired, or I did that. It's like, there's always more to the story. And like,
Yes.
you only know that by like going to events and like talking to people on Zoom and stuff like that. So, like, number one, it's like anything's risky. Like, you
Yeah.
could have a job today. Like, look at all the people on Twitter. They all have
That's risk.
jobs,
Yeah.
and like
I agree.
75% of them no longer have a job.
I agree.
Like, it's just as risky.
Yeah.
But in this, like, okay, like, worst case scenario, like, you could sell on eBay. Like, if you know the basis, like, you just could take it to another platform. But like,
Yep.
another thing to think about, like, there's a ton of services. They're expensive. But like, I know a lot of people who like were deactivated or were suspended, but like hired like a service for like $2,500 and
Yeah.
like got reinstated. Another reason why you need to have like money in the bank if like
Yep.
something like this should happen. But another reason like I'm able to spend this much money is like I would say 90% of the stuff we bought has been stuff we sold like during the year. So
Yeah.
like very familiar with how it sells, very familiar with return rates, very familiar like, what to expect. Like, when you have your own data and inventory land and Seller
Yeah.
Central, it's like, wow, every time I buy 50 of these, like they sell in a week. Like I
Yep.
tried 100 the last time around, those all sold out in like 2 weeks. It's like, okay, like I'm pretty confident like we could do 200
Yeah.
in Q4. Like, and that I probably could do like 300, but like 200. Like, let's see
Yeah.
how that goes.
It's not
And
like
so it's like,
you're not, I always say like, it's not guessing. I mean,
yeah,
obviously you can't be 100% on things, but like, it's just the data. And as long as you have enough Keepa charts under your belt, yes, things can change, but it's a numbers game. More often than not, you're going to be on the right side, and that's what's,
Yeah.
so I'm with you. Okay. So let me ask you this. I have a different views than some people on this. What do you think about for beginners about ungating? Do you think it's necessary or not, or specifically for OA, or like, what's your take for beginners?
I see, like, it gets harder and harder sometimes because, like, as you become, like, I'm not saying this to sound like whatever, but like, as you get further, like, from the beginning stage, it's like more stuff gets, so it's like, I'm not really even aware, like, of what's exactly ungated. Like,
Right.
when I started, like, you didn't have to get ungated, like, in grocery or beauty or whatever. Like, you were just able to sell it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, but then when I got the second account just to do OA, it was like, oh, like, you have to ungate in this stuff. So I think that, I don't know. I think you should get your feet wet. Like, just sell what you can sell. That's usually my like theory. And like, I don't know. I don't think you don't even know if you like reselling yet. Like, you don't even know if you want to do it.
Yep.
So like, why shell out like money? Like, yeah, like if you want to do apparel, like yeah, it's a good idea to get engaged at Nike. Like, sure, but like maybe just sell some other stuff first and like just figure it out
I
and
agree.
then kind of like look what you want to get ungated. I got ungated and stuff a lot of times this year of like stuff that I was like, oh, like this is great, and then like I was like, oh, I'll just like get an invoice for this, and then like never really sold more than
Yeah.
just that one, and
Right.
like that was kind of stupid. Like,
My take is this for people, and I like to share this message. So I started off with retail arbitrage. Prove the concept, prove that you're going to be committed to it. There's
yeah,
enough things that you're allowed to sell, and then get into the things that you want to, that you don't get organically ungated in. But like, what happens is when you're so new, you scan things, and there's so few things early on that you find that are winners, and you're not allowed to sell one of them. And now you're like, oh, if I was just ungated, I'd be doing so much better. And it's like,
exactly.
you have all this time to get ungated. Unless you have a lot of capital and you really are committed to it, might, especially for retail arbitrage, it might be different if you start with OA, but I don't think it's necessary. So I think we share similar starts on
Yeah,
views
I
on
think with
that.
OH, where a lot of like almost myth around, like I'm engaged in a fair amount of stuff and whatever. I think a lot of people think like once they're ungated, it's easier to source those, and
Right.
it's just as hard to source those as like any other brand
Right.
or
And for the
category.
record, everybody can get ungated in Nike with a quick Google search. Anyone, you know what
Yeah,
I mean?
exactly.
It's not like you're in this small percentage anymore.
Yeah,
Um,
that's a good point.
So something I want to ask you, because I know you've meant shout out your girlfriend a couple of times for helping you with Q4. Has she been around for all of the reselling, or is she relatively new? And I'm curious, like her take on it, and as is your family's.
Definitely, she's been around for most of it. Yeah.
Okay.
And yeah, it gets progressive. She likes it more and more. Like the books were like such a
Yeah.
grind. Where she like she was happy. Like she's always saying, "Oh, like this place is having a sale," or "I saw this," or "I saw that." I think her eyes have been open. Like she was like buying like Christmas ornaments or something the other day.
Yeah.
She's like, "I can't believe it. It was like $25," and then like 2 hours later, it was like 35. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, like I gotta see that keep it like it's just like funny. And I think like now at like I don't know, there's more proof of concept. Like my brother texted me the other day, he was like, oh, like damn, like those are like crazy numbers. Like
Yeah. They really
oh,
are.
like so like I don't know, maybe like once you hit like this point, like people like see it
So
differently or something. I
everyone's
don't know.
supportive at this point in time.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
like I think like doing the books is like I guess they're both weird concepts, like because you're going through like used books and like
They're atypical, but like, yeah, you got to do things you got to do. Like,
they've always been supportive, but like, yeah, still every once in a while, my mom's like, "Oh, like do you think it's like stable? Like maybe you want to go somewhere with like a 401k." I'm like,
yeah,
I already have a max out a Roth. Like
yeah.
I'm good. Like we'll be fine.
So,
Um,
yeah,
but yeah, I think they've come around, and it's more like eye opening.
yeah,
What everyone thinks like you're like an Amazon expert though, like when they have a return, like, oh, you know anyone who could like you
yeah.
know
I
get a
know.
return. I'm like, no. But there has been some stuff. Like my mom has bought some stuff, and they've like kind of like messed with her, and like she's like, oh, you can't
Mhm.
return it. Or I was like, just tell him you're gonna leave him a negative review. I was like, oh, here's your money. Like, just like say that, or you're gonna report them to Amazon, and like every
you know
time
the
she gets the
insider
money.
tricks. You're using it against them.
Yeah. I was like, just tell that clown that like you're gonna report them to Amazon and leave
Yeah.
negative feedback.
So I got two more questions for you. All right.
Yeah.
So I'm sure you see this a lot. A lot of people ask, when should I quit my day job, right? Or how long does it take? And now that I've experienced this, and based on our conversation, and I speak to another guy, David's Amazon hustle, really great
Oh yeah.
story. He works full time. I do
Yeah,
other
he's like
stuff.
big on Twitter, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah, I
he's got a
talked to him
great
too.
story. He's such a
Yeah.
hard worker and stuff. But to me, I'm like, again, prove your concept. Don't quit the day job. Work weekends, nights, on your lunch break. It doesn't take 8 hours a day to get really great numbers. So, like, unless you just, I think a lot of people just want to run away from a bad situation, and this isn't going to resolve that because it's not get rich quick because of cash flow tie up, right?
Mm-hmm.
Would you agree or disagree in why that people, if someone were to, a friend were you say to you, hey, I want to do this, how long would it take me to quit my day job? Like, what advice would you give to them?
So I get this question a lot too, and it's like I've been trying a lot harder in content
Yeah.
to almost be like, this is what I am doing,
Yeah.
not ego based, but it's like, this is my opinion. Like I did a whole video about like merchant fulfilling, like I'm not doing it. Like
Yeah.
I don't care. Like I'm just not doing it. And like
Yeah.
people are
It's the
saying you're an
worst.
idiot and this or that. I was like, it's my business. Like I'll do what I want. Like
Yeah.
I bought a ton of stuff early enough, set it all there, and like they're gonna fulfill it.
Yeah.
But I would say like, so I'll just use myself as an example. So my goal would be I had 6 months of like personal money. Like
Yeah.
if the business made like no money at all, and like I would just have to draw from personal, like it'd be fine for 6 months.
Yeah.
The business bank account had like 20 grand in it. Like,
Yeah.
because I was like, okay, like a lot of people don't think this through. It's like, well, if you have more time and you're gonna grow it with this extra time, like you need more money
Right.
for inventory or
Right.
whatever you're gonna do, like health insurance you're gonna have to pay for. Like
Right.
there's a lot of other stuff. So that was kind of my thing where it's like, okay, like my sales were at a level where, yeah, like it surpassed my
Yeah.
salary, like where I was actually like losing money sitting there, kind of.
Right.
And one of the biggest hacks I think you could do is I set up so the plan was not to take any money out of the business for like the first 3 months, but just went like really well.
Mhm.
That like so I just said like, listen, don't I would say come up with a number you're gonna take out. Like everyone says always keep in. Like
Yeah.
that's great if like you have a job and stuff, but like don't bank on like Amazon paying you out or
Yeah.
like what you're predicting is just a prediction.
Right.
Like
Right.
so I was just like, okay, that's fine. This is gonna take out. So right before I left the job, I started to take out what I was going to pay myself every
Okay.
2 weeks. And it was like, how does this feel?
Yeah.
Right? Like it's really, oh yeah, I'll just take like a thousand out or this out or whatever you're gonna be taking out. Like whatever, like I'll be doing more sales, but like once it leaves the business bank account, like it hits differently.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, like that's not that bad. And like
Yeah.
it motivated me actually to make more to like keep it building. So I think like another thing that I did is like pretended I took a week off of work, like a whole week. I was like, this is like your full time now. Like, so
Yeah.
do you like it? Like, is there enough books to
Yeah.
like ran through the whole week like
Love
just
that.
and I like liked it. I did it like I think in the summer and then in the winter. Tested both times of the
I
month.
love that, man. That's great.
And like that's kind of where I came to. And then I was like, you know what? Like, I don't know. I'm young. Like, I can always like
Yeah.
go get another job or whatever. This makes sense. Like, and then I talked to Caleb Roth, the book flipper, and I was like, I don't know if I should like quit. And he's like, what are your numbers? And he's like, dude, like, you could do nothing for 6 months and you'd be fine. Like,
Yeah.
stop overthinking this. And he's like, most people that come to me are like, I have like $2,000.
Yeah.
Like, I think I could do it. He's like, no,
No,
like,
I love that you had a methodical approach to this. It wasn't just like, I think people get a taste and then they're like, I'm all in. And it's like, let me make sure I'm cool with this. you had a plan, and I just think that's such a smart approach. So kudos to you on that. And then last question I'll ask you is like, obviously you've had tremendous success, huge numbers recently, awesome Q4, and you're just getting started. Have you thought about like, what is the end goal with Amazon? Because I will say I've thought about Amazon, and I'm going to ride it as long as I can, especially once you've put in a good amount of work, it becomes so much more easy to just consistently find products. But like, what's the end goal for you? Do you have or, you know, I don't even like that because I find that it's such a cliche thing, but like, what are you working towards, or what do you think could be possible in 3 years, 5 years with this? Or like, what's your hopes, ambitions, etc.?
Yeah, I'm more like it's hard. Like I don't necessarily have like super hard goals. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, I wanted to hit 100K this month, and like it's most likely going to happen at the pace we're going. Um, but like for the most part, I think like yeah, I don't think I'm don't really want to be like a $10 million seller.
Mhm.
Like I can see myself being happy doing like 100, 150 a month
Yeah.
maybe, and like really I don't know, taking more time. Like I work like crazy, like you know what I
Yeah.
mean. So taking like almost systematizing a little more, where like maybe the VAs are like doing more admin stuff, and like I really want to like build like a community. Like I've always
Yeah.
liked doing that. Like before I did this, like I had a job search like blog where I taught people how to like get jobs and
Okay.
network, and like I just really love marketing and stuff. So like I definitely want to build like something like that, or maybe do a podcast. So definitely more like as I'm growing on like YouTube and stuff, like I just
Yeah.
really like that. So I want to find ways to like focus more on that.
Awesome.
But who knows, maybe like figure out a way to like help people or do more coaching and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So that's honestly the more fulfilling part for me is like getting the
Yeah.
DM like thanks for all your help. And so like I don't know if I launch like I don't go guru and like launch a course or something, but like
Right.
I don't want to do because like it's such a bad connotation. But like I've bought a lot of courses and like I don't think like the people are legit, and like I just like them just as much
Yeah.
before and after they launch. So like, but there's just like a lot of shady stuff going on right now that's like I'm
Sure.
not all about. So, but yeah,
Cool.
I mean, what is yours?
So I will say my mind constantly changes just because I've mentioned that
Same.
before. So I actually sat down with myself recently, and I do this pretty frequently to get my thoughts out. So my other business is a tour business, and I'm opening my second location where I just moved to Asheville,
Nice.
and it's a legal franchise. So my goal was to franchise that, and I was sitting here and comparing the two and like the upsides, the short term, long term. And for me personally, at this stage, what I would really like to do is very, very gradually scale. So, like I did 55 last month. This is Q4. That was my first 50K month, by the way. I
Nice.
hope to pass 60 this month, maybe even get into 70 if things continue, but we'll see. And then from there on out, I want to be very steady. So if my spend right now is 30, maybe January go 31, then 32, 33, 34, and then come Q4 next year, maybe I'll take out an Amazon loan, go freaking
Mm.
nuts with it, pay them back in 3 months, and then just do it that way so that by lunchtime every day, I'm done with Amazon. I can give my other business adequate attention. And similar to what you said, I'm really bullish on YouTube, and for a couple of
Same.
reasons. So so for me, obviously there's AdSense, right? And that's something that like, like it's just another stream of income for something I'm already doing, right?
Yeah,
And to
exactly.
what you said about courses and stuff, I don't disagree with you, but I also know, and you seem like this too, like I know I'm well intentioned, and I know that if I offer something, it's going to be of value. Not saying that's going to make
True.
me a million, but another diversification, right? So to me, my mindset as of right now is continue to grow without having to give up other aspects of my life, and we'll readjust in a year or whatever. But I think just naturally, I see how obvious it just continues to trend the more and more you do this. To me, if I can teach 100 people how to make 5 grand a month, it's going to make much more financial sense than for me doubling my sales. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think I would prefer to do that because I just like the variety and I like creating stuff and talking, and I'm an extrovert and stuff like that. So that's really it. I'm going to ride it for the foreseeable future, continue to grow, but I'm not going to go from 55 to 100 to 150 to 2000, 200, not knocking that at all. But my
Yeah.
other business, this is one other thing. I'm rambling, but this is something that's important. The one of the worst parts I think about Amazon is that it is a business, but unlike a lot of other types of businesses, there's no exit strategy. I can
Yeah.
sell my other business one day in theory. So even if I break even, but I'm building, 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 I could
Right.
sell it hopefully one day for a couple 100,000, million, who knows, right?
Yeah.
No one's going to buy an arbitrage business. You can't sell your book of business, you know? And
Yeah, that's true.
so I think Amazon's a greater short-term income, but if I look at, since I do have both, I like the opportunity to build something else too. And like, I also want to travel and stuff. Like Amazon's just great.
Yeah.
It's so flexible, and it's just I'm still figuring out how it's going to work into my life the way I want. But like I said about what I was making, I see Amazon for covering my life expenses, which by the way, I live very simply, a little
Yeah.
bit extra, steadily increasing the flow a little bit. And this way, everything else from my other stuff, I can reinvest in that. I could take a little out. I'd love to buy rental properties, you know, things that just
Yeah.
diversify, you know?
Cool.
So
Yeah.
that's where I'm at. But by the way, that changes by the day. So who knows?
Yeah, same here. I hear
You
you.
know? But awesome, man. Well, listen, I appreciate you being here. And just so tell people where they can find you online as well.
Sure, you can find me at Side Hustle Experiment on Instagram and also YouTube.
Awesome. Thanks for being here, John.
Yeah, thanks for having me.